Before I tell you about Tim Tebow, I first need to tell you about his mother. Because the story that most people know, the youngest Heisman, the NFL, the faith, the John 3:16, that story doesn't start on a football field. It starts in a remote village in the Philippines in 1986 with a woman lying in bed being told that the child inside of her was not a child. And it starts with a decision that changed everything. I've been thinking a lot this week about what it means to keep holding on when everyone around you is telling you to let go. To believe in something when the evidence around you says to stop believing. To trust God when the circumstances says he's not there. Tim Tebow's story is the answer to that question, and I think you need to hear it today. Bob and Pam Tebow were American Christian missionaries living on a remote island in the Philippines in 1986. They already had 4 children, and they had been praying for a 5th. And then Pam got pregnant, and almost immediately, everything went wrong. She contracted amoebic dysentery from contaminated water. She went into a coma, and before anyone realized that she was pregnant, they were treating her with antibiotics, and the medication caused severe placental abruption. The placenta detached from the uterine wall, so the baby was being deprived of oxygen and nutrients. The doctor told her she needed to have an abortion, that her life was in danger, that the baby inside of her was not viable. The doctor said he wasn't really a baby, that he was a mass of fetal tissue. Pam refused. She and her husband Bob made a pledge to God in that remote village with no advanced medical care and no guarantee that either one of them would survive. But they made a pledge to God and said, if you give us a son, we will name him Timothy and we will make him a preacher. She nearly lost the baby 4 times. She spent the last 2 months of her pregnancy on bed rest in Manila, praying every single day for a child that every medical voice around her had told her was already gone. On August 14th, 1987, Timothy Richard Tebow was born. The doctor who delivered him had been doing this for 35 years. He looked at Pam after the delivery and said it was the biggest miracle he has ever witnessed. He had no explanation for how that baby survived. The placenta had barely been attached. There was no medical reason for this child to be alive. The baby, who was called a mass of fetal tissue, came out as a perfect, healthy baby and became one of the most legendary names in history. I want you to sit with that for a second, because everything that comes next after this story, the Heisman Trophy, every national championship, every overtime touchdown, every life touched by his foundation, almost didn't happen, was supposed to not happen, was medically unlikely to happen. It only happened because a woman in a remote village refused to let go of what God had placed inside of her. Remember that. We're coming back to it. So Tim Tebow grows up in Florida. He's homeschooled by his parents. He's deeply, openly, and unapologetically faithful from the time that he could talk, and absolutely extraordinary at football. In 2007, he becomes the first sophomore in college football history to win the Heisman. He is only 20 years old, and he is the best player in the country. And before the national championship, he writes John 3:16 under his eye and goes onto the field in front of the entire country. During that game, 93 million people searched for John 3:16. He didn't do a press release. He didn't do a blog post. He wrote 4 characters on his face and went out and played football. And 93 million people went looking for what those words meant. That is what happens when someone uses a gift exactly the way that it was given to them. Then comes September 27, 2008. Florida loses to Ole Miss 31-30, an upset that devastates the entire program. Tebow walks to the press conference podium. He's 21 years old. He has just lost, and instead of deflecting or making excuses, he does something that stops everyone in the room. He apologizes. He stands there in front of the cameras with tears in his eyes, and he says, to the fans and everybody in Gator Nation, I'm sorry. I'm extremely sorry. We were hoping for an undefeated season. That was my goal. Something Florida has never done here. But I promise you one thing. A lot of good will come out of this. You will never see any player in the entire country play as hard as I will play the rest of the season. God bless. He steps away from the microphone, and Florida wins every single game after that. And they win the national championship. That speech is now permanently engraved on a plaque outside the stadium. The Promise Speech. At his College Football Hall of Fame induction in 2023, Tebow corrected the name and he said, they call it The Promise. I think a better title would be The Apology, because my parents taught me, who were in the back, who are 2 of my greatest heroes, that when you do something that you believe is wrong, the first thing you should do is apologize. The 2 greatest heroes in the back of that Hall of Fame room, the same parents who made a pledge to God in a Philippine village and held on. What happened on January 8th, 2012 is something that I cannot explain, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So Tim Tebow gets drafted by the Denver Broncos. Go Broncos. The critics are immediate and relentless. His throwing motion is wrong. His mechanics are too unorthodox. He won in college, but the NFL will expose him. Like, let's see you out there on that field. He starts the season as a backup. He gets the starting job midway through, and the Broncos go 7-1 with 3 overtime victories, with second half comebacks that nobody can explain. Typical Denver style. Tebow plays poorly for 3 quarters, and then something just which is on in the fourth quarter. They make the playoff. January 8th, 2012. It's the wild card game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Exactly 3 years to the day from the national championship where he wore John 3:16 under his eyes. The game goes into overtime. First play of overtime, Pam Tebow throws an 80-yard touchdown pass to Demaryius Thomas. May he rest in peace. Game over. The Broncos win. That game is often referred to as the 3:16 game. In that game, Tim Tebow threw for exactly 316 yards. His yards per rush was 3.16. His yards per completion, 31.6. The TV ratings for that game, 31.6. The time of possession, 31 minutes and 6 seconds. And John 3:16 became the most searched term on the internet that night. 3 years earlier, 93 million people Googled John 3:16 when he wore it on his face. On January 8, 2012, it happened again. Without him doing anything, without him writing anything on his face, without planning a single moment of it. You do not have to share his faith to feel the weight of that. Some things cannot be explained. They can only be received. Because today, when I was unloading my groceries, right before I was about to start this video, and I looked at this gallon of milk as I put it into my fridge, and the Bible verse was John 3:16. And I know they write Bible verses on all their bottles, but I always get the green cap. But the green cap bottles were out of stock, so I got the red cap. And the red cap bottle just happened to be John 3:16.
Some of the stuff you just can't make up, because the very same day that I was planning on posting this video on May 31st, 2026, the gospel reading for the day, which is the same across all the Catholic churches in the world, the gospel reading today is John 3:16. Like, what? God works in mysterious ways.
After that playoff season, my beloved Peyton Manning signed with Denver. Tebow is traded to the New York Jets. He doesn't play a single regular season snap. He signs with the Patriots. He's released before the season even starts. He reaches out to other teams. Nobody calls. His NFL career is over, and he's only 25 years old. At the prime age of 25, his NFL career was over. Can you believe that? 25 years old. The most famous college football player of his generation. A man who wrote John 3:16 on his face and had 93 million people look it up. And the NFL said no. He doesn't spiral. He doesn't disappear. He tries baseball. He spends 4 years in the minor leagues of the New York Mets organization, showing up every single day with the same intensity, the same faith, and he never makes the major leagues. 2 sports, both doors closed. And here is what Tim Tebow did. He built Night to Shine. Night to Shine is a prom night experience held simultaneously at thousands of churches all over the world, specifically for people with special needs. Every single year on the same night, at the same time, thousands of venues across every continent, and every guest is treated like royalty, crowned, celebrated, and told that they are seen and that they are loved. He runs orphan care programs. He has served children in prisons and hospitals and remote villages in every continent. He has led people to faith in the darkest places imaginable. He married Demi Lee, Miss Universe of 2017, and they both served the Lord together. He has said in interview after interview that the NFL was never the point. The platform was the point. Football was just a door into the room where my actual calling was waiting. The doctor who delivered him couldn't explain how he survived. The millions of lives he has touched since then cannot be explained by football. They can only be explained by what was always inside of him, what his mother held on to in that village, what his parents named him before he was born. Here's what I keep coming back to. Pam Tebow was lying in a bed in the Philippines being told that a baby inside of her was not a baby, and she held on. Not because the circumstances made sense, not because the doctors agreed, but because she believed that what God places inside of you is real, even when the world tells you it's not viable, even when the evidence says to let go. She held on because she knew that what she was carrying was not hers to give up on. Think about that a lot. Think about the things we're carrying right now, the dreams that we're protecting, the callings that don't make sense yet, the versions of ourselves that we can feel but can't prove yet, the things that God placed inside of us when the world keeps looking at it saying, that's not viable, that's not realistic. So I want to ask you something. What are you holding on to that the world is telling you to let go of? Because Pam Tebow held on to a baby when the doctor said it's not a baby. And that baby grew up and wrote John 3:16 on his face and had 93 million people go searching for hope in the middle of a football game. And then he threw for 316 yards 3 years later on the same date without planning any of it. And then the NFL closed the door and he built a worldwide ministry that touches more lives than any football career could have. So you are carrying something that God placed inside of you, something that doesn't make sense to the people around you, something the world might be telling you that is not viable. It is viable. It is real. So don't you dare let go of that dream. Because what if the miracle the world is waiting for is on the other side of you refusing to let go? Pam Tebow held on. Tim Tebow held on, and now it's your turn. Keep holding on. I hope you continue to hold on to your dreams and go after what God has placed inside of you. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you, and God bless. Bye.